Since 1934, Iowa's farmers have turned to the Iowa Farm Bureau spokesman as their trusted news source. Now, the Spokesman Speaks. Listen in and hear from leading experts on topics important to farmers and agriculture. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to our August 23rd edition of the Spokesman Speaks podcast. I'm Andrew Wheeler, and today we have a special one-on-one conversation with the president of the American Farm Bureau, Zippy Duvall. We're going to dive right into some of the pressing national issues that are facing farmers right now and the message that Farm Bureau is sending to lawmakers and other government officials. But before we do that, let's start with the president of the Iowa Farm Bureau, Craig Hill. Many folks associate Farm Bureau with the work we do in the public policy arena, but of course we know that lawmakers aren't the only ones who are wrestling with issues that relate to farming. We know that many consumers also have questions about the hot ag issues of today, like sustainability and animal care, which is why we launched our Real Farmers, Real Food, Real Meat initiative a few years ago. You've probably seen that campaign in a number of places over the past couple of years. At the state fair, in your local Fairway grocery store, on Fairway trucks, and even more places. So we wanted to share the latest development in that campaign with you. For that, here's my conversation with Iowa Farm Bureau President Craig Hill. Craig, Iowa Farm Bureau just released a new video series that features livestock farms to highlight how today's livestock farmers are working to sustainably produce the real meat and dairy products that we know Iowans love to eat. Can you tell us why it's important to give consumers a first-hand look at livestock production in Iowa through this video series?
Well, I think consumers today are taking a great interest in food, and the folks should get to know who is responsible for the care of livestock. So the Iowa Farm Bureau Federation has launched a conversation between our family farmers and all those who might be interested, getting folks connected. It has value, and if you could just question or just curious about how we raise and care for our livestock and our animals, this is an opportunity for us to have that talk.
Now, the new videos are part of a larger series, Iowa Farm Bureau's ongoing Real Farmer, Real Food, Real Meat initiative. Can you tell us a little bit more about that initiative and why Iowa Farm Bureau is so committed to highlighting the value of real meat, as well as the farmers' commitment to sustainably raising animals and providing that exceptional care?
Well, I think the best form of flattery is imitation. But when we see others bringing imitations and substitutes to market in their attempts to lure customers away from real meat, we need to react and be part of that conversation and visit with consumers about the value and the importance of real meat in their diet.
Sustainability is a hot topic nowadays, and as a veteran livestock producer, you've witnessed the gains that farmers have made in reducing their environmental footprint over the years. Do you think that's something that today's consumers understand and appreciate?
Well, I think about my own operation, and I've had over 50 years of experience raising livestock as a farmer with our family. Fresh water, climate-controlled facilities, from birth to finish. Our productivity has been overwhelming, and what we do to provide an additional step to improve an animal's comfort or health, we are seeking it. It's our commitment to you and our commitment to consumers, and I think consumers need to hear that story.
The Real Farmer, Real Food, Real Meat initiative also highlights the nutritional value of real meat and dairy, which help provide us with the complete proteins that we all need for our health. Why do you think that it's so important to highlight these nutritional benefits of real meat and dairy?
Well, from vitamin B12 to zinc, real meat and dairy are a superior source of vitamins and nutrients. As a protein source, real meat is the highest standard to promote health throughout a person's lifespan. It's good for all ages. It promotes brain development, nervous system functionality, and it supports the immune system. It's just a very good product.
Another key element of the Real Farmer, Real Food, Real Meat campaign is the commitment to animal care. Can you talk to us about farmers' commitment to animal care and how that shows up every day on the farm?
Well, in most all cases, the care and comfort for our animals is more important than a night's sleep. We take pride in what we do, and we make efforts every day to make sure that our animals come first. And we do that as producers. It comes naturally. We start in 4-H and FFA, learning how to, be good stewards of not only the land but of our creatures, and that development goes on throughout your career and profession as a farmer.
It's easy for those of us who work in agriculture to make assumptions and forget just how disconnected the average person is from agriculture today. You heard Craig talk about how farmers prioritize the care and comfort of their animals, even over a night's sleep. As simple as that sounds, that means something to a consumer who has concerns about animal care. That's why this new video series, featuring farmers and their firsthand expertise on topics like sustainability and animal care, matters. And that's why you'll continue to see more videos from us in the weeks and months to come. We've given you a link to the new video series in the podcast notes, and you can also find those videos at realfarmersrealfoodrealmeat.com. Now, as promised, let's shift the conversation to national policy, including the long-running discussion about which land and water the federal government has authority to regulate, estate tax proposals, and the need for cattle market transparency. For that, we turn it over to Spokesman editor Dirk Steimel, who met up with American Farm Bureau President Zippy Duvall at the Iowa Farm Bureau office in West Des Moines last Wednesday.
President Duvall, Farm Bureau has expressed disappointment in the EPA's plan to reverse the current Navigable Waters Protection Rule and replace it with a new rule. Why is this move by EPA such a big concern for farmers?
Well, we're concerned because we know what we came from on the 2015 ruling, which was the largest land grab in the history of our nation, to a rule that actually identifies waters of the U.S. that are navigable. And it's in the title of it, So this new rule of 2020 actually protected all of our rivers and our lakes and our creeks, but it didn't get over into what we describe as, wet weather ditches and gullies and spots in our field that we see after big rains. It's just important that our farmers and ranchers not have to go through regulation in areas where the only time it might be wet is after a big rain. The other thing is it did give us clear lines between what was federally regulated and what was really should be regulated by the state. And it cut out a lot of expense for our farmers of having to hire lawyers and consultants to identify and defend their decisions.
Are you concerned that the Biden administration is trying to reimpose the Obama-era rule that you mentioned earlier? And what is Farm Bureau doing to make sure that farmers' concerns are considered in these water rules?
I have reached out to Administrator Regan several times. We've had him at our Council of Presidents when all our state presidents was in Washington, D.C. He has made a commitment to continue his practice of bringing all the stakeholders to the table like he was when he was in charge of the EPD back in North Carolina, where he come from. And that includes farmers coming to the table and having their say. So we're making sure that we take that seat at the table. We make sure that we're continuously working with him and his staff. And I really think that his commitment to allow us to be at the table and listen to us really puts before him the opportunity to build trust between us and him to see whether or not they're going to listen to what we have to say. So we're working hard. We want to make sure that we minimize any damage that might come to agriculture or hardships that might come to agriculture through overregulation, and try to keep it as close to the 2020 rule that we can. And when they veer from that, we want to make sure we tell them why and how it's going to affect our farmers.
President Duvall, is it important that farmers speak up on this issue and let their opinions be heard to their lawmakers and to the regulators through comments?
It most certainly is. It never hurts, and it always helps when our grassroots are engaged and communicate with the congressman and the senator, and if they have the opportunity to communicate with the EPA. EPA is holding listening sessions. If we have farmers or farm bureaus that are that passionate about it and want to go online and sign up to be part of those listening sessions, and we at Farm Bureau, American Farm Bureau, are there to help them shape what they want to say at those listening sessions. So by all means, regardless of what issue we face, when our grassroots are activated and they're engaged, that's when we get things done.
Let's switch to another important topic, tax policy. There's an effort in Congress to eliminate stepped-up basis and impose a death tax to raise funding for these big government programs we've been hearing about. Why is changing the estate tax rule such a big concern for farmers in Iowa and all over the country?
Yeah, well, this proposal came from the administration and now is being considered to be part of the infrastructure bill or the reconciliation bill. And it is vitally important that we prevent that from happening, because the stepped-up basis that's proposed to do away with that and make capital gains payable at death, and also discussions around either eliminating or lowering the exemption that we have in our estate taxes. Those two things could prevent us from being able to pass our family farms on to the next generation. We all know that we're land rich and cash poor, and if we make those capital gains payable at death and we pass them to our family, pass the land on without a lot of cash to be able to pay those taxes, those farms will be sold, and whose hands will they end up in? And that is a big concern about being able to pass our family farms on. It's a huge threat to the future of American agriculture.
Does the recent rise in land values that we're seeing, does this make this even more important, President Duvall?
It makes it even more important. That's exactly right, because the more value you got there, either the more appreciation you've had in stepped-up basis, or the more value you have in your estate when you passed on with, and could go over and beyond the exemption level that we have in estate taxes. So it is crucial that our grassroots stay involved. I was with a congressman and two senators from South Dakota yesterday, and they made a passion plea to the people listening to them to please call your congressman and senator. Please tell them how this is going to affect your farm and prevent you from being able to pass it on to the next generation.
And once again, Farm Bureau is going to be very involved in helping members get that point across to people in Congress?
Yes, and we've been involved all along in every step of the way. We've sent out action alerts to our membership and asked them to respond. We've had tremendous response, but you never can have too much. I tell everyone this is kind of like going on vacation with your children, and they asking you, are we there yet, are we there yet? We need to keep calling our congressmen and senators and putting the pressure on them to make sure this devastating proposal doesn't make it into law.
Do you think that lawmakers really understand that proposing these kind of taxes, how devastating it can be to family farmers?
I think the ones that come from rural parts of the country do. Unfortunately, there's a small percentage of our lawmakers that come from rural America, and that's why it's so important for us to have everybody engaged in all our states, especially the more populated states. They have a lot of representation in Congress that has absolutely no idea. And this doesn't just affect agriculture. This affects small businesses across America, and small businesses and agriculture, which we are part of small business, is the backbone of this economy. And I think if we can make those lawmakers understand that, they'll find another way to pay for all the money that they've been spending the last several months and years.
Cattle markets have been really in the news lately because of the widespread between prices paid to farmers and ranchers and wholesale beef prices. What are some key steps that Congress and the administration can take to ensure that farmers and ranchers get a fair price for their cattle?
Well, most people know that I was involved in a historic meeting in Phoenix, Arizona back early this year where all the organizations that represented beef production was in attendance. And a lot of people thought that there wouldn't be anything good come out of that meeting. Well, I would tell you it proves over and over again that even though you might not think alike, it really does help to sit down and have a conversation about finding common ground. And out of all those organizations, even though we're so different, we came out with some things that we do agree on. We agree on making sure that we bring more transparency to the market, and we agreed on making sure that the Livestock Mandatory Reporting Act is implemented this fall, and try to incorporate a contract library, something similar to what they have in pork, so that we can discover how those prices are come about. We also supported broadening the federal investment into regional and small or medium-sized packing houses to give us more hanging space, and try to put some of that profitability back into the family feeder and the family cow-calf operations out across the country. We know that we've seen, after the Holcomb fire and during the pandemic, record prices on boxed beef, and all along our small family feeders and our cow-calf guys are out there struggling trying to make ends meet. There's something wrong in this system. We want to make sure we identify what's wrong and try to find some fixes for it. Whether it be legislatively or within the industry, it's time to find those fixes in those departments. And two, the last thing is that we've asked for a investigation by the Department of Justice, and they have yet to let the public know what they have or haven't found. And we're asking our congressmen and senators to help us put pressure on them to come forward with that information.
The recent announcement by USDA that they're going to add some new reports, was that encouraging?
It was encouraging, and Secretary Vilsack and I have visited numerous times. There, when he first took office, we talked almost weekly, and now it's almost monthly now. But if we have an issue, he and I are very open to having a conversation. And he told me early in May that there were going to be some announcements about reporting. Any reporting of discovery and transparency of pricing helps us along the way. And it's also encouraging to see that the administration also committed to putting some additional investment into small and regional-sized packers.
Well, we wish it was a shorter to-do list, but it's good to touch base on the status of some important national issues and get an update on everything that Farm Bureau's doing to address them. Thanks to our two guests for joining us this week, AFBF President Zippy Duvall and Iowa Farm Bureau President Craig Hill. That's all for this episode of the Spokesman Speaks. I hope you enjoyed it and that you'll join us for our next episode on September 6th. Thank you for doing the work that inspires everything we do here at the Iowa Farm Bureau, and thanks for listening to the Spokesman Speaks.
Thank you for listening to The Spokesman Speaks, a podcast by Iowa Farm Bureau. Check out more podcast episodes at iowafarmbureau.com/podcast. You can also find and subscribe to the Spokesman Speaks podcast in the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other popular podcast apps. We appreciate your ratings and reviews, and we welcome you to email us your feedback at podcast@ifbf.org.